Okay, so now that you have your body paragraph claims typed in, let's take a look at some of your classmates who participated in the synchronous session. So we've got Jamie's sentences in here, or some of them are on the screen. She's got 6, I think. And I wanted to take a look at one of her literary device paragraphs and see if it had the key pieces. And I would argue it does. So she's got the author and the poem. And then she says that her active verb is that Rich argues, and the enduring objectification of women has and continues to limit the agency of females. So this claim absolutely works, and it doesn't exactly follow the model, but it's got all the key pieces. It's got the verb, and at the end of it, I know exactly what is being said here, that Rich is critiquing, and that might have been the verb I went with, right? I would have maybe gone with something like, in snapshots of a daughter-in-law, Rich critiques, blah, blah, blah. But I really like the way this sentence is phrased, and I encourage Jamie to keep it as is because it really hits all the marks, even though it follows a different structure. So I think this is a good example of how you can vary a bit from the core structure and still have a sentence that really works. Here's another one. When we look at her sentence about Lady Lazarus, when she says here, takes a cynical approach to critique, I would have just said critiques. In Lady Lazarus, Sylvia Plath critiques, right? Go with the short active verb that cuts down your verbiage. And it helps you also see how straightforward these claim sentences can be. So if we said in Lady Lazarus, Sylvia Plath takes a cynical approach to critique the relationship between personal agency and the unavoidable objectification of women, we could sharpen that, right? Tighten that by changing this takes a cynical approach to critique and just go right with critiques, right? That's the kind of move that we could make here that would simplify our language and just leave us with a really nice, strong, simple claim. Claims do not have to be big, complicated sentences, although I'm going to show you later how they can be and still be good. So there's a wide spectrum of claims that will work. Short, concise sentences to longer, more complex sentences, as long as they have the core elements. Let's take a look at a sentence we reworked during our session. This is from Parrish. He had a first draft sentence that I thought was a little vague and didn't really nail the pieces that we wanted. So he originally wrote, in her poem Immigrants, Pat Moore critiques the culturally constructed stereotype of what an American citizen is and explores the matriarchal desire to provide a fundamentally better life for one's children. I thought some really good stuff here, right? We've got that strong verb critiques, and we've got this interesting discussion of matriarchal desire and family and children, but the language isn't as clear as it could be. We don't have a clear sense of how it all relates to human agency, and we aren't sure whether we're talking about gender or race even to some degree. So we rewrote that sentence to a much simpler sentence that had all the key elements. The critique, the race tells us we're dealing with race and human agency. So that might not be the final sentence Parrish goes with, but it moves him in the right direction. There are other verbs that could be used there other than critiques, right? Go back to our active verb list, and there's all sorts of verbs you can use to suggest a counter argument, right? You can say criticizes, undermines, questions, challenges. There's lots of good verbs if you use the active verb list resource that you can find on our Paper 2 resource page. So we've looked at a couple of literary device-based paragraph claims. We found a really good one from Jamie and talked about some possible rephrasing. We found a lot of cool ideas in Parrish's, but found a way to trim it down to a more streamlined argument. And then I want to show you Kimiko's got a lot of great stuff too, but we're going to look at some of her stuff later. I wanted to show you Penny's. Penny's sentences are a little more complex, but I think that they still work very well. And so you can look at this one that she wrote about 21 love poems. She's got a verb, the active verb in there, and she's talking about lesbian relationships and how they enhance human agency by challenging traditional ideas of romance. So this is a slightly more complex claim, but it works. And there's another example, another strong claim from Penny that we'll talk about her theory paragraph later, but her body paragraph number 3 had another strong claim, again, a little longer, and that's totally fine. So we talked about, though, how we might want to think about not using that same verb contends if we can avoid it in all places. Okay, and then one more literary device paragraph she's got there. There's, again, using that word argues. Argues and contends are great. They're neutral verbs, which means that if you use argues and contends in the sentence that comes after, the part of the sentence that comes after, you're going to have to be clear about what the author's position is. Is the author suggesting that what the passage you're discussing talks about a negative relationship to agency, a positive relationship to agency, or some mix of the two? Okay, so with these examples out there, and as you can see, we went through each person in the group's sentences one by one. With these examples out there, go ahead and rework yours. And so those of you who are doing the makeup activity, that's what I want you to do now. I want you to, after this video ends, go in and take 15, 20 minutes, rework your claim sentences using these models. And if you have a claim sentence that you think nails the model already, just say that. Hey, my claim sentence rocks. And focus on the ones that need changes. But I'd like you, for each of your 3 body paragraph on literary device-based paragraphs, to stop now and revise what you have. And then afterwards, come back to the next video.